Hello again. Today we're talking sugar and we are going to bust the myths about sugar. That sugar is bad for you. Not at all. We need sugar. Our brain needs sugar, and we know that if we don't have enough sugar in our bodies, we're going to faint. Even though I have lots of fat around me, I will faint if I don't have enough sugar, particularly if I'm very active and my body doesn't have the chance to convert other compounds into glucose. I will faint. Now let's have a look at what sugar is all about. There is glucose, which is grape sugar. It is a simple sugar, and it is also found in carrots and onions in abundance. So if we eat lots of carrots, if we eat lots of onions, we will have a lot of glucose in our body. We need to remember that. Then we also have fructose, which is fruit sugar. Okay, going to represent, they're about the same type of molecule. The structure is just slightly different. So the glucose and the fructose are two simple sugars that we regularly encounter. Now, if we look at the sugar that we have every day, that's our cane sugar. It is a combination of the glucose and the fructose that are linked together. Okay, they are linked together, so it's a double sugar. We have a simple sugar, which is glucose. We have a simple sugar, which is fructose, and they combine and they form a double sugar. And that double sugar is called sucrose or cane sugar. And I simply call it kitchen sugar because that's what we use in the kitchen all the time, in our coffee all the time, except for those people who prefer to have other stuff. But this is our normal sugar, which is a double sugar. And in our bodies, when we have consumed that sugar, the body will break it down again into glucose and fructose. And that will be absorbed by the blood. So it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to have a little bit of sugar in our bodies. If we look at other forms of glucose in our body, a lot more types of sugar, but we're not going to deal with that. For our purposes, we're going to look at the sources of sugar, and we're going to look at a lot of these glucose molecules together. I'm going to put them together and form a long string of glucose, and that glucose, there we go, right, a long string of it. And once we have this extremely long string, they can branch, they can be in different shapes, but this is what we call our starches. There are other compounds as well that are made up just of glucose, but the starch that we eat, our white flour, our brown flour, anything that contains starch, our potatoes, our rice, it has long chains of glucose in it. Even if I do not eat sugar in the way that I think about sugar, if I eat white bread, for example, it is very highly packed. It's just this glucose. And the body will, in the same way that it broke down that other one, the body will break it down into glucose eventually. So if I had a slice of white bread or potato or anything else, even my brown bread, wherever there's starch in there, eventually we'll be sitting with a lot of glucose. So the fact that I don't eat sugar or that I don't take sugar doesn't mean that I don't get in any sugar. My fruits have lots of sugar in. Most of the vegetables even that we eat contains a little bit of starch, and that will eventually be broken down into our glucose. The blood will then absorb that glucose from our digestive canal, and the amount of sugar in the blood, the amount of glucose or fructose in the blood, will determine whether the body is going to secrete insulin. Now, it is tolerant of quite a bit of sugar. Let's say my body is capable of handling 2 dessert spoons of sugar per liter of blood at the time. That is just an example. It will differ from person to person. The moment I exceed that, the pancreas will secrete insulin to take out some of that sugar, and it will put that sugar in the liver in a different form. It will also link up the glucose molecules together, form a compound known as glycogen, and that will be stored in the liver and also in the muscle cells. If I eat a lot of sugar at one time, and my insulin is not capable of handling all that at the same time, the body will turn some of it into fats as well and store it somewhere, and we know where that fats go. So the fact that we don't eat fat doesn't mean you're not going to have fat. Your glucose can also be turned into different compounds. Your body has a way of dealing with any excesses. Now, sugar is good for the body, but not in excess. Oh, so let's say somebody has to take a painkiller for a headache, and that person takes 2 tablets. It will take the pain away for the time being, and it may disappear after a while. But if that person takes 6 or 10 tablets, it's not going to be good at all. It may have very bad effects. Now, the same with any other compound, and sugar is no different. If we have too much of it, the body will have to deal with it. The brain can only use glucose as a source of energy. Because there is no blood in the brain, the form in which the energy has to get into the brain has to be a very soluble, a very quick form. And we will faint if that doesn't happen quickly enough. So glucose is the quickest way for the body to get energy into the brain. And that glucose will then get the nerve cells in the brain to function. And if they don't function, we don't function. And we can actually even die. The brain also controls all our other organs, and if they don't function, we will die. So do not get fooled by these hypes that sugar is bad for you. Your body will make sugar if you don't take in enough sugar. And what the body then does, it takes your fats, it will take some of your protein and convert it into glucose so that the brain can operate. And when your body does that, it kicks out certain byproducts, and those byproducts have very bad side effects. For example, the breaking down of your fats leaves you a lot of ketones, and those ketones are acidic, and your blood is supposed to be alkaline. So if your there's a condition known as ketoacidosis, and if your blood is poisoned by those ketones, you can die. Now, let's have a look at how the body deals with the sugar. When we consume sugar, in whatever form, when it gets into the bloodstream, it's going to be in the simplest form, which means in the form that I showed you before, that is either in the form of fructose or in the form of glucose. And these are the forms that the body will convert. There may be others, but primary forms are these 2. And these molecules will be broken down to give you energy for the muscles, to give you energy for the brain cells. Wherever energy is required, we will need these sugars. Now, the myth that sugar makes children hyperactive is just a myth. If sugar had made anybody hyperactive, then all of us would be jumping around if we had enough sugar. I know some people put up to 6 teaspoons of sugar in a cup of coffee. And what would happen to them if they had that amount of sugar? If we deprive a child of sugar, now imagine what's going to happen to its brain. The cells won't function properly, and they do become irritable. And that what we call hyperactive because of sugar, it may be because of a lack of sugar that they become irritable. So brain function requires sugar. Concentration requires sugar, but not too much of it. And how can we monitor that in particularly a child? Children play. They need a lot of energy, and that sugar will drive them. It's not that the sugar makes them hyperactive. They are active and they require sugar. If a child is becoming inactive, they will get fat. Not just because of the sugar, it is because of inactivity. So let children play, let them exercise, let them run, let their brains work, supply them with enough sugar, and monitor the bodies to see whether there is any fatty deposits anywhere on the body. So the moment we see the fatty deposits, we need to monitor the diet as well. That says, are they eating too much fats, sugars, or whatever? We need to tailor their diet to the activities. Some children are more active than others, and they require more than others. So do not look at other people's children. Look at your own children. See that they have the required amount of nutrients for their activity level. Some children like sport, so they grow actively. If we deprive a child of anything, we may just stunt their growth in a particular area of development. So let them eat enough of everything, not too much. And you are the judge. Why? If an animal requires a certain nutrient, we'll find cats, for example, eating sand or chewing grass. That is because their diet is lacking something and they will go find it somewhere. And the same for any other animal. They need, they will take from the environment what they need. So children are often stunted because you can't eat that, you can't have that, you can't have that. If we are going to do that, the effects in the long run, and we can only see that when they become older, then there's nothing you can do about it. The damage is done already. So monitor the child, monitor their energy intake, and see when they become irritable that it might be because of a lack of sugar and not too much sugar. How do we avoid diabetes? Diabetes is the inability of the body to metabolize your sugar effectively. There are two types of diabetes, namely diabetes mellitus, that is the sweet diabetes, that says too much sugar. And then there is diabetes insipidus, where the sugar in the body seems to disappear and there's always a low level of sugar in the body. And people tend to faint very easily if you have diabetes insipidus. And that is much more dangerous than diabetes mellitus, where you have too much sugar. You can die, like I said, if you have too little sugar. The brain doesn't function properly. The organs will then suffer and your body cuts out. You will just either faint and recover, but later if your body has managed to salvage some sugar somewhere, with what we call gluconeogenesis, that says it has made glucose from other products, or if it has very easily also managed to salvage glucose from the liver by breaking down the glycogen, your body can recover. But if that doesn't happen quickly enough, you will die. Now, on the diabetes mellitus side, when we have too much, the spikes occur. And if we're thinking of it this way, those of us who can make syrup, if we have to syrup a donut or anything like it, the more sugar we put in the water, the thicker the syrup. Now, if the blood has a little sugar in, what always has a little sugar in, it flows easily. But the more sugar it has in, the thicker the blood becomes, and the more difficult it will be for the blood to flow through the blood vessels. The smaller blood vessels may become clogged with a thick syrupy blood. So a little bit of sugar at a time is very, very healthy. So throughout the day, little bit of sugar, not too much, not all at one time. So particularly also people who have one meal a day, and that is very dangerous. The body will then start packing that extra sugar in the belly area and form that paunch. Throughout the day, a little bit of sugar at a time is how we can prevent diabetes, that we spare the body from secreting insulin all the time, because we do not exceed that tolerance of the blood for glucose. So the body does not exceed that limit where insulin is required to go and put that sugar in the liver or in the muscle cells anyway, because there is enough. And also if it does happen that we have our extra stores of glucose somewhere in the body, as long as it is not too much, as long as we do not need to secrete lots and lots of insulin every single day, our pancreas will be spared. But it's almost like if our insulin has run out, let's say, for example, I have 100 liters of insulin for my life, and it's been secreting a lot every day, that 100 liters has run out, and I will get diabetes. It doesn't really work like that, but just assume. The body has to produce that insulin constantly, and it's taxing the pancreas if it has to do that excessively on a regular basis. So if we are mindful of what we eat, when we eat it and how we eat it, we do not have to deprive ourselves from anything, but we do it in moderation. And we remember that our brains need that glucose. Children need it. Sometimes when people are busy with exams, we find them sucking sweets. They might not know it, but your body asks for it. Your body says, supply my brain with that sugar because I need it. So subconsciously, we are doing what our body is requiring. So if you have diabetes already, remember, your brain is no different from anybody else's brain. It still requires glucose on a regular basis. Do not force your body to go and fetch your sugar from other compounds. It is taxing on the body, and it also causes byproducts to be formed that is not healthy for the body. So have a little bit of sugar throughout the day, but like I said, a little bit at a time. Maybe every 3-4 hours, have something that contains a little bit of sugar. If you are insulin dependent, you have to listen to the doctor. Anybody who watches this video and has diabetes and is under doctor's care, please consult with your doctor before you do any changes. Discuss with your doctor what you want to do. If you want to get off the tablets, which is possible, consult with your doctor. And we often find that, like if we make pancakes, it's always cinnamon and sugar. Now, cinnamon is a natural way of dealing with your sugar. And the most important nutrient for dealing with sugar is vitamin C. So if we have a regular intake of vitamin C, which we should have every single day, at least 500 milligrams of vitamin C. And for those who have diabetes and for those who are really conscious of their health, maybe 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day, even more if you can, because vitamin C drives so many other functions in the body. So be mindful of what you eat, consult with your doctor, and those of you who want to self-medicate, those of you who want to prevent anything, is take your vitamin C every single day, have your cinnamon with your sugar. Do not have too much of anything at any one time. Spread it throughout the day, but you do not have to deprive yourself of any kind of luxury. There are some of my videos already loaded that gives you very healthy snacks, very, very delicious ones, but also packed with vitamins and minerals, as well as a little bit of sugar. So take care of yourself, and thank you for watching.